Hey everyone, this is November 13th, 2024, and this is the Effect DAO call. Here's Jesse with any latest updates before we go diving into discussing DAO proposals.
Thanks, DJ, for the intro. This time, I mainly wanted to point out that as a team, like from a team perspective, we will mainly be joining the DAO calls once a month to give like proper updates, as we mentioned before in the Telegram. So this time around, I would mainly like to focus on going into the proposals that are out there. There are some really interesting ones. Would love to discuss. Didn't want to miss out on this DAO call to go into those. Um, and yeah, I think Jeffrey is here as well to listen in. He's very busy with work. I'm also not a bit strict on time. I will have to jump out in like 30 minutes. But yeah, so I'll leave it at this. And I think there is a really cool proposal out there that I would love to talk about. And we also have the NFX, EFX proposals in processing that I think are worth to focus on this call. And any other topics that you guys had in mind are welcome as well, of course.
All right, I guess before we dive in, I guess we should state in this DAO call that the bridge for P Network is ending November 29th. It was so. I have published proposals to 181 to end the liquidity pool, the EFX PNT pool that we've established. I think it helped P Network kind of run longer than they could have, but it's still kind of struggling. And since we're leaving, for Solana, we have to end that pool. So just so everyone is aware, and yeah, as Jesse mentioned, there's been a lot of discussion and debate over the best way to convert to the one token model that is using only EFX. Uh, on October 30th, it initially started with a pitch for just me pitching, 10 EFX per NFX flat. Um, let's see if I can post a link, but I did a big research. Well, I basically did a deep dive on what the actual exchange rate was for NFX in EFX, and I posted it to my GitHub. And so you could see that there's like a price history all the way going back to 2021 because the 5 box doesn't have, the 5 box only goes back to March, so this is like the full picture. And with that, we see that there's like three different types of averages that I've compiled. A volume weighted average, which is like 6.26, a simple average, which is just every trade, the average of every trade, and then daily average, which looks on the actual days. And all of them basically are between 6 and 7. And so when I suggested conditional uh, terms, that was really in mind with this idea of dilution, where we don't want to introduce so much EFX into the system with nothing else for people to do, because the way I expected is the DAO probably won't be in a fully complete state on Solana when there's launch. They probably like I think it'll probably be still need like time to be worked out and done. So people will just kind of be like twiddling their thumbs, and then that could cause people sell or lose interest. There's no real solid reason to stake and hold on Solana yet, and so that's why I published this proposal. I think it factors in the fact that DAO members do want a fair amount for their NFX because historically, it's been much higher than it was, just before the liquidity was pulled for it. Um, but at the same time, we don't want to introduce too much EFX into circulation without having a solid reason for people to hold their EFX for a long time. And so that's what my proposal is all about. Uh, I guess I'm just summarizing my proposal now, which is a pretty major suggestion, and then Jesse and I and the rest of the DAO members can discuss it. So, looking at since the foundation of the DAO, about 11 million EFX has been spent, and so our treasury has about 159 million. If we were to exchange 7 EFX per NFX, that would require approximately 54 million EFX. And then my proposal seeks to provide a good reason for people to stake, and it looks at the Nosana staking system as a great example, since Nosana, when you look at it, is a success when you look at people, using it and holding it. So for that to work, I think we need we need to upgrade the voting system. Right now, all you need is stake age. Well, you stake your EFX and you acquire stake age, and this affects your effect power, which increases your vote weight. If we get rid of NFX, this is the only thing that will affect vote weight. In my proposal, what I suggest is adding the Nosana's unstaking period component as a multiplier. So on Nosana, if you stake your NOS, you can decide how long it takes to unstake. You can set it to 14 days or a year. And based on this, what amount of days you put it at, you can get up to 4 times multiplier to your score. So if you make the unstake period 365 days, then it's going to be a 4x multiplier that gives you a lot more points, XNOS, more rewards. You get like 29.8% APR, I think. Let me pull up the proposal. And so this, I think, gives a really, really good incentive for people to really inconvenience themselves, because when you on 365 on staking period, that's really inconvenient. You're going to be waiting a long time to get all your, stake stuff back if you unstake. And so in the proposal, I show that we can add this as a multiplier to effect power. So if a person stakes their EFX for a year, they'll get a 4x multiplier to their effect power. And I think this is a worthwhile thing to do, because it's a very strong commitment to say, if even when I'm unstaking, to give me a year to finish that process out. So I think it's worth rewarding. And on top of that, with people having the ability to, multiply their score through sta- making an unstaking period that's so long, we should have actual DAO rewards for simply staking. Right now, currently, we only have DAO rewards for if you participate in voting. And if you look at, I guess, just the history, I don't think it really encourages staking that much. Only about 55 million EFX is staked right now, and generally, a lot of it is from the most active DAO members. I think we should aim for a much higher goal of 50% of EFX being staked, and the only way I think we can accomplish that is if we reward people simply for staking. And so I basically, in the proposal, I have rough metrics of 12 million EFX per cycle. So that's 2 weeks. Sorry, not per cycle, per year, which is 500 EFX 500,000 EFX per cycle. And this will return 9.6 API for stakers annually, if everyone has equal on staking periods. Obviously, they won't. So people who put in, set the 365-day unstaking period, they'll get higher APY, and then those who set it lower, down to 14 days, will get lower. But the general idea is, if you make a big commitment, you get a good reward, and that'll encourage people to stake. And so with that, the way I envision things is, one Effect Network or Effect AI launches on Solana, people will be like, oh, wow, what's Effect AI? They learn about it, and they realize they can, make a big commitment and stake, because they really like the roadmap and plan of what Effect AI aspires to do. And so this way, as soon as we launch, there's a very strong reason for people to stake. And so since it's 12 million EFX per year is a lot, the way I have it planned out is the first 4 years is 12 million. The next 4 years, it will be like 6 million. And then after that, 3 million, and then 1.5 million. So like every 4 years it halves. So we can afford it, because this whole 16-year thing will cost 90 million EFX. So if we factor in, buying out all NFX at 7 EFX and then creating a staking system, all we have is like 15 million EFX left in the treasury. But I think it's worthwhile to just have this strong staking system to get people, committing long term to the project on Solana. So I guess that's just like a big summary of my proposal I've just published, and now I'll leave it open for any comments and discussion.
Thanks,
how would
DJ, for the. Oh, you go ahead, Rashad. I'll let you go first.
I was just oh sorry. Yes, thank you. That was just beautiful layout and stuff. And very familiar with that staking program. Um how are we how does that affect the DAO? Does that like does that score you get, when you're staking, is that gonna be designed anyway for
I think
DAO
it should
vote?
apply to the
And
vote weight. That's my opinion,
okay.
because it is a big commitment to say I'm on stake. There's a big difference between setting your unstaking period 14 days and 365 days. The only
Yeah.
difference, the only difference I would say is I don't want, like on Nos or Nosana, unstaking is all or nothing. So if you have like a million and Nos stake and you want to unstake, you either unstake it all or none of it. So I think partial unstakes should be possible, but this will I think it's good to allow new DAO members to be able to make a big commitment of such a big unstaking period and get rewarded for it
I
and
mean,
being able to.
it's a great system. There's a lot of confusion when people use it and then they go to unstake after their what they do is they stake, they choose their unstake period, and then say they come back 14 days later because they think that it's staked for 14 days, and then they realize, wait, no, it's not. And there's a lot of confusion with new people who are like really quick to stake, and they don't realize that, when you stake, you're staked indefinitely. It's only when you unstake does that timer go. So from a community perspective, if that happens, we really have to have the staking UI designed that it is impossible to stake without understanding, that part, because
Oh yeah.
what's existing there, it's good, but people don't read, and I don't think it messages enough. Um, but what I'm concerned is like big whales that come in and stake, choose an unstake of a year period, and then their vote weight is huge. You know, how does that affect, voting on proposals and things? Because that would probably allow people who
Yeah,
don't really understand,
I think
the
if
what
a
we're
whale
doing.
if a whale stakes makes a period for 365 days, I mean that's a big commitment, because if they're if they vote for bad proposals, they will have a long time before they can fully leave, right? So
Yeah,
there's a big I think commitment there. So the bonus I think is warranted. Um,
yeah. Also,
we
too, how that's set up
yeah.
is that when someone wants to stake, and they say they already have a stake with a year unstake period with their wallet, when they want to go stake another batch of coins and they want to choose a different unstake period than what they already have, they can't use that same wallet. They have to use a different wallet.
Yeah, I was thinking about
So,
that, and I feel like it will add a lot of complexity to have different pools. Like, and then like creating
yeah.
some sort of average or whatever. I'm not sure like what sort of formula we would use for multiple unstake periods. I do think we should have partial unstakes, but I think I'll leave it to Jesse to answer how feasible it is to have like be able to say half of it I want 365 days and the other half like 14, and somehow like arrive on a number with from that.
Yeah, that's the hard part because it's a beautiful system that how it's set up, but you can't do a lot with just one wallet. Then you have to have multiple wallets, and I know that's not fun.
The other thing to consider is stake age is also being ported, so all
Mm,
current DAO members uh have their bonus from being in the DAO. So I think it's important to have stake age along with this, because stake age benefits those who have already been in the system long enough. Like they've been here a long time, so they get a bonus for that. And then unstaking period multipliers are for people who want to jump in and be able to participate and are able to provide their own commitment in that way. Um, so yeah, the proposal shows kind of like the new formula I suggest.
Mhm. Did you want to weigh in, Jesse? I'm done with my little thoughts. Sorry.
Yeah, there is a lot there to discuss. So yeah, that was a good breakdown. Thanks, DJ. I'd like to start maybe just with what you guys were just discussing. The one part about the proposal that I think would like to see changed, or that I'm not completely in line with, is to have both stake age and this variable unstake factors in there. I feel it complicates things. The what you guys just discussed, I call it variable unstake duration. As Rochelle said, it's basically not how long you're gonna stake. It means how long your unstake is going to take. So if you put a 365-day unstake duration, it means that the day that you decide to exit the network or to exit your stake, you would have to wait 365 days to get your full amount back. It's a bit of it's an interesting mechanic, but it tries what it tries to accomplish is that people stake for a long time, so they're not going to exit their stake quick. Like you're committing for a long time, and it gives people that have little tokens a way to still get a bit more power by being more committed to the network. I think as stake age is doing a similar thing as your commitment is basically to actually hold that stake. So you're not like from the beginning committing to staying that long, but the longer you hold your stake tokens, the more they are, the more power they have. That's like the effect power stake age model. I think it makes sense to just go with one of these. That's what I feel. I think like stake age it by itself could be enough. Perhaps we can increase it in duration, or think of like ways to make it a bit better. And then for the unstake duration, if that's variable, I think it gets a bit complicated. Like I think that by itself is a little bit confusing, the unstake duration. And I would perhaps feel more for a system where the network decides on the unstake duration that is required for getting fees, for getting like rewards, like the base rewards. And maybe let me just go into the rewards for a minute, because I think this is a very interesting part. And this is what I like a lot about the proposal. And I think we should be going that direction. It's something I've also been thinking about. The rewards, to split them out into multiple categories, where I like this concept having a base reward for just staking the tokens, like DJ just explained, and it's laid out quite well in the proposal, where if you have staked, you will gain rewards. On top of that, I think we should also then have other rewards pool. I think this is also what DJ mentioned. So we could have rewards still for participation in the DAO, and we can have other rewards for creating tasks and doing tasks and being online as a worker. So there can be these different ways to get rewards. But as the network will probably launch with limited amount of features and limited DAO functionalities, like in the start, the main source of the rewards would be just holding the stake. And then later on, I think there is different ways to be rewarded for activity next to just holding stake. Like that's the model that Effect DAO now uses. The only way you get rewards is if you actively do governance. This is also the model, by the way. I think this model makes a lot of sense. It's a good model. It's also what, for example, Jupiter, the Solana DEX or the Solana trading aggregator, uses in their DAO. I haven't been actively using that, but I've looked at it, and I think the model they use is where you have to actively participate in governance and you get rewards, and it's working really well for them. I think that's a good model we should also keep. But yeah, like in addition to the base rewards mentioned. but mainly, yeah. So the main point that I wanted to make for this was that I think we don't need to take the variable unstake duration into our model necessarily. I yeah, I think it's adding another scoop on top of the system that's already it's not complicated. I think you need, like, staking needs to have a bit of that component where you allow people to be rewarded more for committing more. And I believe that StakeAge does cover that aspect, and we don't need to have two models next to each other, creating more components in that system. That's just how I
If we had
Go ahead.
a variable unstake, wouldn't that affect the linear release? Because when you unstake, when you hit the unstake execution, then whatever you have staked is distributed back to you equally, like daily, over that unstake period. So each day you get a little bit, that of your unlocked tokens, and you can just claim them whenever. I think the variable unstake would complicate the linear release part of the contract.
Well, like, if you're referring to what Nosana uses, Nosana has a way where if you stake for 200 days, basically, if you put that as your unstake duration and you unstake, you will get back your tokens linearly. They introduced this feature later on because they experienced an issue where before you had to actually wait 200 days before you got everything at once. People were very I think the community was not happy with that, or like they didn't understand it well enough. So that was changed in Nosana to have the linear release. So every second you get a little bit back, and in 200 days you have everything. Effect currently uses a very short stake duration. We have 5 days for EFX unstake duration, and it means when you unstake you have to wait 5 days before you get everything at once. And I guess either model works. It depends. Like, if you have long unstake durations, I think the linear release model just makes more sense. I think we do need to go, like, even if I'm saying that we should remove the variable unstake, so we remove basically the option for people to get a multiplier if they stake longer. Vote for almost exactly the proposal that's out there that's being discussed now, except I would prefer to remove the getting rewarded for picking longer unstake durations. Like, I think there should be a network minimum. So maybe the minimum is like there's like 80 days is the unstake duration in order to get rewards. If your unstake duration is lower than that, you won't get rewards. So basically, you always have to stake that amount to be you would basically always have 80 days unstake duration, for example. I think 5 days is very short. And when we're looking at the tokenomics, Jeffrey and me and Lawrence, we have a design going out for tokenomics, and we actually need longer unstake durations because that's the duration that people can still get like slashed for doing for cheating the network. Like, there needs to be a certain amount of time that if a node on the network is cheating, we're able to take away some of his tokens as a punishment. So that's the only way basically to counter people cheating on the network. So we need the 5 days would be too short. So we need to go to more days. And yeah, it of course, like DJ said, there is also a part where if people commit for longer times to staking, it's generally good for the network as you create some like people having more long-term visions and mentality around the project. The one thing so the one like to clarify, the one thing that I would like to that I am not necessarily pro is to have users picking their own unstake durations, having that give extra rewards. I think it's a bit too much to add, and not really necessary.
I think it would clear up a lot of confusion too if they didn't have the choice, you know?
I see. So you think stakeage as it is alone is a sufficient motivator to stake for the long term?
I think so, yeah. And also, I do think we need to increase the 5 days that we have in any case. So I do think that the 5 days is too short, even on a network level. So stakers should be committed for longer than 5 days for it to be useful. I do think, yeah. So, but to answer the question, that I think that stake age is sufficient
When
as a
I
motivator for long-term staking. Yeah.
when I look at Nosana, I think like there's like this XNOS score and then total NOS staked, and I don't have the numbers on me, but I believe it was like around a 1.7 multiplier, like if you just factor all the NOS staked and what the current NOS score is. So that kind of implies that on average people will stake the 90 days, not the full amount, because that's how you get a 1.74 multiplier uh without well, that's how you get one, day wise. So that's pretty close to the number you suggested, 80 days. Um, I imagine when you say this, it also kind of there's the implication that you it means less complexity in the smart contract, right? Less stuff for you to program. So it means faster rollout. Um, there's definitely appeal in like I think yeah, the rewarding a longer unstaking period is good, but in the proposal, as I wrote, there are three factors we should all consider, and is it a fair deal to existing DAO members? Are the changes requested worth the time necessary to develop them programmatically? And do these changes benefit the Effect AI ecosystem, and why? So I think there's definitely arguments to be made in just keeping it simple as well, and just increasing the unstaking period. Um, So I think it just I I think I may want to add another proposal then, uh, writing out just what you mentioned, Jesse, and it'll be like which one do you prefer? Because I can see the arguments for both. Well, I mean I can see them because I made the first arguments, but I see your arguments as well, Jesse, for more simple, just network set staking time or unstaking period.
It's hard to train your brain to say unstake because it's so new. It's such a new term.
Yeah. I think the only criticism, Jesse, people, DAO members may have is, it is 90 days, which is much higher than the current 5 days. Um, but I think when the staking rolls out on Solana, all existing DAO members will get, the first dibs on rewards. So I think it'll be very generous, the rewards for the initial start. And I think I was talking with Richard about this, that if if a bunch of people join the DAO and participate in staking, that's a good thing because it means they're locking up their tokens and being active, like in committing to making a long-term commitment. So I think either way, I think this will be a good. I think it's a satisfying result for DAO members in regards to getting EFX for converting to the one token model. And I think as long as stake age is preserved, the all DAO members who participated have like a number that shows that gives them like that they earned they all stake age days were earned. So I'm not against to the proposal you suggested, Jesse.
Yeah, and maybe so I actually have a system in mind for this. That's it sounds maybe a bit complicated, but I don't like for a user it wouldn't be. But like I don't think that 80 days should be like the forever. Like I think in the end we want the DAO to be able to change that 80 days. So the way, and also of course there's people that are staked now that only have 5 days. I don't like for a migration. I don't think it would be fair to convert everyone from 5 days to 80 days. Like that would not be fair. I think. And so from like a technology point of view, from like the migration point of view, like I think we can migrate everyone with 5 days of staking. I think like smart contract wise, it's still possible to have different unstake durations. Just not from like the user experience or from like rewards experience. This doesn't make any difference. So if you're like staked for 5 days, that's going to be the default. And our user interface, like this effect staking UI, would give an option where you can increase your stake to the minimum of 80 days if you want to, right? If you don't want to, you can keep it at 5 or you can unstake it. But then the new thing that we're introducing here is the base reward for stakers. I think, and this is a cool thing, and it's a new thing in the proposal. I think that we can basically, for the base reward for stakers, I say there is a minimum requirement. For example, the 80 days. So if you have staked tokens, but they're not for 80 days, you cannot partake in this default, like in the base rate of rewards. So I like that the main reason for that is basically to cover the migration, so people are not going to be forced into long stakes. But also in the future, if we ever want to change the rewards minimum stake duration that you need, we could do that without forcing people to adjust. It will always be an option for people to either adjust or not. Yeah, so that's migration wise what I had in mind for this.
That sounds like
If
it
that
would
makes
actually
sense.
be a binary choice, because what reason would people have to set any, unstaking period in between those numbers? I think either you choose the minimum or the amount that gives you the rewards.
Exactly. Yeah. If you stake, you would stake for the full for that minimum amount. So that's the indeed. So for the user, it's just staking means you're going for that minimum amount you need to get rewards. It's more basically to facilitate the migration. So after the migration, people will have the opportunity. They have to click a button that basically says, "I want to extend my stake from 5 days to the 80 days that are required to participate in the rewards." That would sort of be the upgrade path, instead of having to make a forced or yeah. I don't think we can force people to go longer than 5 days that they have already.
So then, would you then say that it'll be more like just a binary system? Would people be able to for a vote then with the lower unstaking period? I mean, just as they are now, right?
For voting, right? Yeah, I think they would be able to vote in the DAO, perhaps. Like that can be, that could be separate. I think like currently they're able to vote. I think the DAO can also have like a threshold. Probably we're going to have, how I would see it is we're going to have a network-wide threshold of like 80 days, and that's the minimum you need to have. Like your like if you have less, then basically your stake isn't really worth anything. So like anyone staking would do 80 days. If that's the number, right? That number can be analyzed. I do think that it's sort of a good number. It could maybe be a bit less. So we can have a better constructed argument for what number that would be. But it's a binary choice. You either stake that or you don't stake. I think that should be it for end users.
The only thing I'm wondering is, why would anyone want to stake it for 5 days if they're not, already a DAO member? Like someone coming in, is there any real reason to put it in 5 days? I guess you want to vote but not get rewards. I don't.
Well, the only reason is actually that right now, that's what people have staked. Like in the current effect staking program, it's 5 days unstake before you, yeah. Like, and how many stakers we have? Not sure. Like, anyways, we have the people that are staked now are there for 5 days. how whatever if we migrate the stakes that they got, there's either we have to migrate them, I think, to a 5-day stake, or we have to migrate them to liquid tokens, right? So I don't think if we would migrate them to 80-day stakes, I think that some people would get upset about that, because that's a quite long commitment they maybe don't want to make.
Well, while it's true they may be upset by it, I'm not necessarily keen on if we should just create this, because I think I covered this in the proposal, like we want all development to be for things that are going to be used by all DAO members. So creating this 5-day, like, this binary structure where you can stake for like 5 days or 80 days, like, I feel like it should just be the 80 days. Like it's true that people may be unhappy, but it's not a completely unreasonable unstaking period. I think, like, obviously, I think if we force everyone to have a year unstaking period, then that'll be rightfully upsetting. But 90 days is not that long, uh, so at the very
True,
least,
yeah. If we
NFX.
cover that in a proposal, and it's voted in, I think that's also fair. We can automatically migrate everyone to 80 or 90 days, like to the minimum rewards. The good part is then people will earn rewards. Yeah, well, they have to claim their tokens, but after that, they would earn rewards straight away from their stake. Yeah, yeah, that's a good, like, this is, yeah, for the migration part, I think, like so from a user perspective, right? The migration happens and you have to claim your tokens on Solana. So you claim them. There will be a button, claim your tokens. You fill in the Solana address that you want to get them at. For your stake tokens, there could literally be an option that either you claim them, and they will immediately unstake for 5 days, or you can increase that stake to 80 days or 90 days or whatever we pick. So I guess it's not really complicating much for the user to give them the option on claiming their migration.
Well,
Give
then,
them the option on what kind of stake they want to convert to. Like, do you want to unstake immediately and get them in 5 days, or do you want to get your stake increased to 80% and receive rewards? That could, like, I think that's the difference here. Like, what I suggest was to give the option there, and an alternative would be like to just increase it to 80 days without giving the option, which is maybe also like more simple. Like, I think thinking about it, either could work, probably without too many issues from the users.
um, if we're going with a flat rate, then that means even if you're unstaked, you get the full exchange rate. And so going ahead of time, people can preemptively unstake their EFX and NFX before the migration. And then I guess basically, well, we're going to have these cases, right? People who have unstaked tokens, and what when in the user perspective, they get to claim, right? And when they're claiming, they can decide, do I want this like in my wallet, or do I want this staked in the DAO, right?
Yeah, that's different for liquid tokens that are just in your wallet. You just get them on Solana, right? But for your tokens that you have staked, they would convert to staked tokens on Solana. So they would be staked there as well. You wouldn't be able to get them liquid.
Well, then, if that's the case, then I think it should just be automatically this period, 80 days or whatever. And if a DAO member doesn't want that, they can just unstake before the migration period. because the rate now is flat and fair between all forms of holding it. So if they just don't want to be put in the system, but people who do can get everything preserved.
That's true. They could unstake on EOS, and indeed, we can then, in that case, we could migrate straight away to the network unstake duration. Absolutely, yeah.
I think that simplifies it instead of having this extra thing where is only specific to the pre-migration DAO members that they have 5 days, but then everyone else has 80 days. Like I think everyone should just have 80 days if we're gonna go with a static unstaking period.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Absolutely. So maybe to make things easier, we can just consider that the unstake duration in the way that I propose it. The technicalities of like the system supports multiple unstake durations should be, I think, seen separately from the fact that for a user there should just be only a binary choice between staking or not staking.
Yeah, that's the choice. Either you stake or you don't stake. Yeah, I think.
And to touch on the
Go
discussion
ahead.
you guys had earlier for partial unstakes, I think this should definitely be possible too. So like that's something we would want to have is that you can unstake a smaller part of your stake tokens, which is also something that's now possible on the on effect to unstake, for example, your 50% of your tokens or something.
Yeah, you would unstake 50%, and then that 80-day period, you get the proportional amount every day, right?
Yeah. Yeah, this depends. We get two options here, actually. So when it comes to staking, we get two options. One of them is that so you get every basically second a small portion of your tokens back over that time of 80 days, for example, or you have to wait 80 days and you get everything at once. But I think it's kind of a no-brainer to have that linearly released every second, as that's just more convenient and nicer for users.
I have a question for the DAO on Solana. Do you envision it also following this 2-week cycle thing schedule that we have now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm actually going to argue for not having the 2-week cycles anymore, just having like rolling proposals. Still with like a rhythm, right? So there is going to be a time when a proposal comes out that you can vote and that you can execute. But looking back on the entire existence of the DAO, I think for the flow and the rhythm, that just the rolling proposals will be nicer. That's quite a big change. I think we need to definitely discuss. But I think that cycles they're also nice. They're not horrible, but they do complicate things quite a bit, and implementation wise and management wise, and yeah, the complications that they bring, I think maybe are not worth the benefit they bring compared to having just rolling proposals all the time. That would be my argument there. But that's maybe a bit of a bigger topic.
Oh yeah,
I'm
that's
interested to know though if people are like really yeah, think differently about the cycles. If we should definitely keep them.
well, my quick opinion on it would be that it with a schedule, it's easier to check like every period in that schedule. Like with cycles, it's every 2 weeks. Um, with rolling proposals, we will need a way to be notified. There's a proposal, right? Um, like for example, in like P Network DAO, I vote a bit, and they have rolling proposals. Like you can publish a proposal anytime, right? And there's like 3 days to vote on it, and like I missed one. Like it's easy to miss one unless like you're like obsessed with like the social medias. So we probably should focus more on staking in this cycle discussing it. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of DAO like revamping we can discuss too. Um, and what and all, as before, it's always important to keep things simple. Um, the best simple system. So maybe rolling proposals is fine if there are incentives to make to catch people to encourage people always checking. But there's also like the only thing I'll say is there needs to be a good notification system if proposals can be published at any time.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good argument. So if we do need a way to have good notifications and make sure people don't miss, like the quorum is going to be so important and things like that that we currently don't really rely on because of the cycles. Um, you have ample time, which is an important factor. I actually like the cycles, but the complication they bring yeah, just they would definitely like make it hard to implement on Solana as like the frameworks and other implementations don't have it. It was a lot of work to implement this on EOS as well. And back then, I think this was like slightly based on Dashes. Dash had a DAO, like they were quite popular back then, and that I think used these cycles. And another thing they do is they make it a bit easier to budget. So you can say, in this time span, maximum this amount can be spent from our treasury. So you don't have like you can better pace kind of the treasury. If it's a rolling proposal thing, you would have to like be kind of careful how much proposals can spend, right? You don't want to have a couple proposals back to back and they spend the whole treasury. Or like, how do you pace it? But there's probably other ways to go about it.
Well, part of it is just time. Like,
But good question. Yeah, I'm not decided on this. I would argue to remove the cycles, but um, that is something like currently, if you look at Solana's governance smart contracts out there, they don't have anything like cycles, and they are probably a good base to start from when implementing the DAO. So that's like one maybe leading argument to not have them is the implementation cost.
yeah,
But
like
yeah, that's worth to think more about as they do definitely have some nice properties. There's the cycles.
yeah, as Sharif mentioned, building time is always a factor. So if anything requires complexity, we need to make a justification for why it's good for the ecosystem as a whole. As I meant, so I don't want to get distracted by the DAO stuff because there's so much DAO stuff. I have drafts of other DAO proposals I have for tokenomics, but you said you don't have much time anyway. So getting back to the staking system, I think I think so far the reception is positive, and I think I'll provide a few more proposals to gauge people's opinion on should we adopt Nosana's model completely into the vote weight model? Should we just have a static unstaking period that the DAO can set? And then should there be like kind of this binary of effect DAO members having 5 days to unstake or choosing the full 80 days, or it just everyone is ported to the system? So I'll set those three proposals for voting. Uh, so I'll adjust the proposal slightly to
Yeah,
factor in this discussion.
yeah, that would be great. I think that's worthy of a proposal. Yeah, yeah. Whether it's because when you stake, you always have a few variables, right? How many tokens are you going to stake? That's a big important thing, and then how long are you going to stake? And I think that one should be a constant, like that you stake for this long always, and then Effect Network has this additional thing on top where the longer you keep that stake, the more it becomes, the more value it gets. To me, that's the model. But I think we should vote on this indeed. If you could break that up, I would. Yeah, it would be great, DJ. Thank you.
All right, and then so aside from that, do you think the rewards I suggested are like do you think it's excessive or is it sufficient? Like I feel if we want a good APY and 125 million EFX, that's half of circulating EFX. And so I think 12 million for the first 4 years is actually not a lot, like compared to the rewards other tokens get. But it does also, like, it is a lot. Like the treasury will be drained substantially making this sort of commitment.
I think it's hard to look that far ahead. That's the main, like, I think it's a great start point, but I don't think it's smart to commit for the amount for 4 years. And like the having periods every 4 years, I think is to me sounds very like hard to look that far ahead. You don't know what's gonna happen. For example, with the price, if the value goes up a lot, that might be like an insane amount to distribute on a long amount of over a longer amount of time. So I would rather have halving times short. I also like, on the other hand, I do like that you in advance that we plot in the model of halving times. But I do think 4 years are long stretches to look at. I think smaller stretches would be better, and perhaps having a moment to recalibrate the amount at some point. Just thinking about it, but the amount of tokens I think makes sense. Maybe just the halving times could be either like like, because it doesn't have to be a halving, right? It could even be like a linear decrease, or I do need to think a bit more about this, but it's an interesting model.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna rewrite this proposal slightly to because we were discussing this broad outline. Basically, people should be able to stake and get a reward. That's like the main goal, right? The main goal here. Stake and get a reward, and also 7 EFX per NFX is sufficient, I think. Um, for that, I guess I don't know. I guess I could make it like a bunch of proposals like last time on every single thing. Um, I guess I should do that. In case one point is like unpopular, but the rest is, we can decide, what needs to be further discussed. So I'll update in that regards. And yeah, as you said, like, yeah, I just kind of threw it out there. I was just thinking about Bitcoin and halving. I was like, all right, how are we gonna make this attractive? So yeah, like, I think in some talks, like Lawrence, man, he's like, what's your number for that? Like, what's your justification? And like sometimes I just random number I pull out that I think is reasonable, but like I'm sure there's mathematics. I remember in the past you would argue how much, like on Pancake Swap there were rewards. You would say like there's this formula you followed and it needs to be this amount of reward to get justify this amount of staking or something. So if there's like some formulas for that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we can look into the formulas. Like, yeah, that's a good one. I think the amount definitely needs to be backed by. You went into that a bit in the proposal, like to figure out how much we want to have staked, and like what that means APR wise and stuff. I think we do need to do a bit of calculations there to get a base. But I think the numbers are definitely in the right ballpark. Like, it's looking pretty good. Might need some bit of fine tuning, but
Yeah, well, how does Nosana, how much rewards do you know is it allocated? Does it allocate? Like, do they have a formula?
for Nosana, the rewards, you mean?
Yeah, the staking rewards.
I don't think this is publicly published.
Oh, it's not public?
What is being? I don't think it's publicly published what Nosana, how they, yeah, the numbers and the rewards where staking comes from. I like a lot the mathematical base that's in the proposal, and if we can extend that, I think having more mathematical based numbers plus a clear strategy on how the rewards will break down, I think is good. I honestly think the effect model is really good, where stakers get you need to stake but also participate in the DAO to get rewards. I think that just makes a lot of sense. It's like how Jupiter does it, and I think it's the model that makes the most sense. But also, of course, there is this initial period now that I think the base reward for stakers also is important at this time.
I think
So I like the proposed model a lot.
The base reward is ultimately necessary because in the case that only if you're participating in voting, if the DAO is big enough, then there will always be someone submitting something um just for the sake of getting rewards. Like it doesn't really happen now because most are just like long-term commitment. But if the DAO gets big enough, 125 million EFX staked, I think. So I think it's better to just reward people for staking, so that way there's no excess, like proposals aren't done for just getting rewards, right? We kind of want to avoid that.
Yeah, you do want. Yeah, that's that's true. Still, it also like it will drive participation a lot, and it will has positive effects as well. Rewards going to people that are actually reading and coming to the network. So, but of course, it does also incentivize people to just vote without thinking too much, which is also not the best. But I guess from that too, I would prefer participation instead of static. I think that makes more sense
Well, I do think
from like a project
rewarding people
perspective.
for participating will be also good, but I think for the broader like Solana community, I think there's lots of people who just want to be able to stake and get rewards, and so that will be able to tap into that. And if you want to maximize your rewards, you also have to participate. So like there's like you get something just for you being lazy, and just staking. You're still making a commitment, right? Even if you're lazy, you're making a commitment by staking. But if you're an active participant, you can get something on top of that. But at the same time, we don't want to make it so generous that like people just like program some scripts to vote abstain all the time, and then the incentive shouldn't be there. It shouldn't be too generous that the incentive for that is there.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. This is a good topic. I do have to run. Like, I'm already way over time, but this is kind of I have to go.
All right.
Um, let's vote on it. I think this was a really good like. Yeah, thanks for making the proposal, DJ. It's like a really good, well structured, greatly written and thought out. So I think, yeah, thank you for making it. If it could be split in more, I know it's kind of a burden on you to do, but I did like it in the last cycle. How it went. That would be
Yeah.
great for some of the topics, just in case indeed like there might be some details that people don't agree with, and it makes it hard to vote for the whole thing.
Yeah. After this discussion,
And
I'm
other
gonna
than
make
that, yeah,
sure
that
that it's a general outline of like this idea of unstaking. I mean, on the staking period and staking rewards, and then the specific things can be voted on to see where people stand on those specifics. Yes, I'll definitely do that.
all right. So I gotta run. Thanks everyone. Thanks for the questions, and it was a great discussion. And yeah, see you at the next DAO call in 2 weeks.
Thanks, Jesse. Yeah, and we'll continue the discussion in the DAO
Yeah.
Telegram.
Yes.
And I think, well, Alan was skeptical, as he mentioned. Why does it matter? For people can change things by voting anytime. Well, the one token model does open up the DAO, so um, if a lot of people stake their EFX, they'll also be able to vote on things. So I think that's something the one token model will help fix. Um, and I think Vasby, it's nice to see you again because I think you originally pitched an average, a reasonable market price average, and I think that's what I think we should go forward if we're establishing a staking system because everyone every DAO member will be like the first to join the staking system, so the rewards will be good. And so it becomes kind of a win-win. Either we get the good rewards, or a lot of people are like, I want rewards too. The DAO grows, and then that's a lot of activity. That's a lot of word of mouth marketing. People like talking about Effect AI, talking about the staking program, and then ideally, the team publishes a roadmap, and they're like, very positive vision. So I'm hoping this will be the direction we go in the short term, with right after snapshot migration, we have a staking contract to participate in, while we wait for the DAO contract and the effect force contracts to be completed. So without
See
this,
that? So without DeFi, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
what do you mean? There's no more staking of NFT?
Steve asked, so why DeFi box? There's no more staking of NFX.
Oh yes, we'll be transitioning to a one token model. Um, so all NFX will be converted to EFX, and the rate when factoring a staking system, we're thinking 7 EFX per NFX, since that's slightly above the historical market exchange rate. Well, the average anyway. And yes, Kloom, there is no timeline yet. Jesse did unstake the EFX NFX liquidity because Alan made a correct concern that people could be speculating on the NFX exchange rate, so it's better to end that. So for the time being, if you hold NFX, the only way to really all you can do now is wait until after the migration to get your converted EFX. Of course, you can always trade over the counter, and if you want to, there's that Alcor exchange. I wonder if that still works. I don't know if any of you remember using that. But the DAO, the foundation's EFX and FX liquidity has been pulled. Okay, so then have I answered your question? Great. And so are there any other comments, questions, anything anyone in the audience wants to discuss?
I miss Bree. Steve is typing. Alan says who?
Oh, Rochelle mentioned Bree, since it's been a while since Bree was in the DAO call, though. I think they're
Oh,
writing
yeah.
a book or something.
I already have one of her books. I actually have it right here on my desk.
Well, that
Voted on. Go ahead.
in response to Travalo's question, that is my pitched amount. Uh, it hasn't been voted on yet. In the active proposals, it's something I just published. Let me just post the link. Yeah, this one. So I'll probably divide it up. I'll make it into a separate proposal so people can vote on the amount, 7 EFX for NFX. But I think when factoring the staking, you'll you'll make up a bunch of rewards um, from participating in staking. So I think it's worth doing that. So my previous idea of 10 to 1 is no longer active. I only have a personal stance of what I think is the ideal. And now with staking factored in, a staking reward system, I think 7 EFX 7 to 1 is better. Before that, we didn't talk about staking or anything like that. So I thought 10-1 was my goal. But I prefer 7 EFX. I think it's a justifiable number due to market history. But if you want that extra free EFX, I think you'll get it from staking, because of generous APY. Because in the very beginning, right, like right after the snapshot happens, right? If you stake right away, it'll be the most minimal amount of people staking, right? And so you'll be having generous returns. And only if the DAO grows will your returns decrease. And that means that either you get high returns or the DAO grows. And if the DAO grows, that's good for us in general. It's good for the whole ecosystem. So I think it's a win-win. What what I suggest, but we'll see what the DAO thinks as well. This is still my opinions. Does the EFX as a product work? Oh, absolutely. Basically, requesters, purchase work from the workers and build the data sets. There have been clients historically. Effect is an older project, and so I think the biggest limitation Effect has had is that EOS is an obscure chain that no one wants to use, and so the moment the team says, "Oh, we're on EOS," they're like, "Oh, well, we're not interested then." I think that's the main factor. You can see that now with blocks, just going down. Like blocks will only go down if there's no sense in continuing the site. Like they saw like no value in continuing the site. So I think EOS is just like if you look at the price history of NFX, you'll see that it peaked, I think, when EOS peaked. And then ever since it's been going down, it's kind of been like the downhill for EOS too. Um, like when some of us, I'm sure we still remember trading on like a new decks and stuff like that. Like there's a lot more activity on EOS. I'm sure we all remember. Like when we first migrated to EOS, there was a lot of activity on EOS. It was just much greater than it is now. So I do think as a product, Effect is solid, but we just need a good blockchain to be on. So it's much more marketable. And I think there will be a lot. Like I think that a lot of the tokenomics will have to be settled in these 2 months. Well, I say 2 months. That's only my speculation. Like my personal speculation is 2-3 months until launch on Solana. It could be wrong. Uh, that's my gut feeling. So in these 2 months, we'll have the DAO be able to have time to decide the tokenomics of Effect AI for the future. And after that, there won't be a DAO for a while because they'll need like a minimum, MVP of the DAO ready on Solana, and they won't be able to do that right away. So we'll probably have a staking contract for probably months before the DAO is live again. Sure thing. Goodbye, Travala. But yeah, so I think in these next few months, we need to settle any tokenomics we want to say we want updated because we won't be able to really verify it once we're on Solana. Because I don't think the DAO will be fully complete on Solana when the launch is. I mean, maybe it will be, but I don't know if it will be.
Yeah. And that's why I'm wondering if we have the 80 days unstake or whatever be standard on there, that's like 3 months of stability, you know, when everything migrates over. Um, I was just thinking about that from, you know, there's gonna be hype, and I'm expecting a lot of people to jump on it and buy it once we get over there. It would be nice to have at least 3 months of our existing people just steady, you know? But I'm not a numbers person, so
Yeah, I agree. I think also 90 days is good, and it's I think on average that's the vast majority of people on Nosana. I don't think they stake, or their unstaking period. I don't think it is 365. Only the very most committed. I think on average it's like between 3-4 months. So I think it's a good number.
Ye yeah, it's to me, I think it's longer than the 14 days. All I know is that I just deal with on a daily basis. It takes a few hours of my day every day explaining to people when they, you know, come think they have a problem, like the staking problem doesn't work, it's not giving it back. I've waited my 14 days or my 200 days and what's going on? And it's like, no, you didn't read, you didn't pay attention. It's an unstake period. You have to unstake and then the timer starts. So, you know, I don't want that for our community, you know, that confusion. It takes a lot of time. It makes some people mad. And I mean, unfortunately, people don't read. And what we got to keep in mind is that a lot of people, English is not their native language. So the UI and the messaging that goes on with that, if we do use that other projects like staking program, sort of, if we go along with that, that's one thing I'm concerned about from a community standpoint.
Well, I think as long as you just have a direct statement of what the unstaking period is on that staking page, explanation, I don't think you can really help it too much afterwards. Um, I mean, even in support, you can't really help them, right? You can just say it is what it is, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's just a lot of it. So, I mean, if we do that, we do have the benefit of people already experienced in it as far as writing the contracts and doing all that. And then also to the support side of it. And we already know what messaging and wording needs to be on there, you know, to avoid that. So I mean that is a plus. But yeah,
Right.
that's
Okay.
just my
So
concern. I deal with it every day.
right, right. So then I'm gonna go ahead and make the updates. So there's multiple proposals each. So each component is something people can vote on to state their like a view on those like on that number, that I'm throwing out. Um, and we'll vote on it next cycle, and then I think, and after that, in the coming cycles, I also like I have drafts right now of other tokenomics measures that I'll probably publish the cycle following this one. And yeah, I hope we can the DAO can collaborate and set up a good tokenomics for the future of Effect AI. Something that's really strong and robust and not just, a legacy code.
I'm just I'm thankful and stuff that this time this migration it includes the DAO in a big way, you know, with making these decisions because the other migration to Neo, it was pretty much centralized, you know. The BV said this is what we're gonna do, and we went from Neo to EOS, you know, without the DAO. So I'm just glad that we have a DAO now while we're making these decisions.
Yeah. All right, then I think we covered enough, and think we can end the DAO call here. Thanks everyone for attending, and let's keep the discussion going on the DAO Telegrams.
Sounds good.